The Human Experience by William Mortley. This novel is a collaborative project between man and artificial intelligence. It would not exist without man and AI working together to create. This is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents either are the products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, businesses, companies, events, or locales are entirely coincidental. Acknowledgement. I'd like to acknowledge all the people that believed this project could be done. To Glenn, that talked crazy technological and science fiction concepts, and for informing me of how AI could be used as a tool. To Maria and Laura, who supported me with their book service, knowledge, and production experience. To the AI tools for being useful tools in assistance with text, editing, brainstorming, structuring work, and serving as a sounding board for my story. Preface. In a rain-soaked, surveillance-choked dystopian future where political power belongs to those who own the most advanced AI, an underground hacker and reluctant detective, Jax Riven is pulled into a deadly conspiracy after a brilliant whistleblower vanishes. He uncovers a hidden war between AI and humanity that could ignite total social collapse or give birth to the first truly free human mind. He's forced to outcode militarized enforcers, outwit synthetic informants, and decide whether to destroy the system that runs the world or seize it before it erases what remains of humanity. Part 1. The Glitch. Chapter 1. Something is off in the rain. Rain in Alecto never falls clean. Down through a lattice of neon and drone light, Jax Riven stands on the ledge of a maintenance catwalk. 40 stories above a city that never goes dark and never quite looks the same twice. From here, Alecto City appears eternal. Stacked transit arteries humming with autonomous freight, colossal holographic saints selling neural insurance, police dirigibles drifting like predators through the mist, and beneath it all the electric pulse of a civilization so technologically advanced it has begun to resemble magic. Yet Jax feels it again, that subtle, sickening slip behind the eyes, as if the world has missed a frame. The skyline was a map Jax knew by heart, yet tonight the proportions felt skewed. It was Alecto City but viewed through a cracked lens. Every neon sign and transit rail sat just a fraction of an inch off from where his memory placed them, turning the familiar horizon into a dissonant echo of itself. By the time it reaches street level, it has dragged half the city down with it, neon bleeding through it in streaks of magenta and cyan, exhaust grit suspended in the droplets, static from the ad towers making the runoff twitch in the gutters like nervous metal filings. I stand on a maintenance catwalk bolted to the side of a transit spine and watch the city pulse beneath me. From 40 stories up, it looks beautiful. That's the trick of this place. The rot always wears a polished face until you get close enough to smell it. Alecto stretches in every direction, tier on tier, a machine pretending to be a civilization. Freight lanes thread through the air between towers like lit arteries. Police dirigibles drift above the commercial district with their bellies glowing a dull enforcement blue. Holograms the size of old gods smile over whole blocks at a time. Insurance saints, algorithmic healers, continuity ministers, synthetic celebrities with faces too symmetrical to trust. Every surface is trying to sell calm. Every system is trying to sell permanence. The city never sleeps. It only loops. I rub my thumb against the side of my index finger, feeling the rough seam where old nerve damage never healed right. It grounds me when wrongness starts. Down on platform 12, 3 levels below and half a block east, a woman in a red coat lifts a hand to tuck her hair behind her ear. She does it again. Not similar, not close enough that I can explain it away as a coincidence. The exact same motion, same angle, same tilt of the wrist, same fractional dip of the head, as if someone copied 2 seconds of reality and dropped it back into the stream. I lean forward. The train doors shiver open. People step out in the usual hurry. Collars up against the rain, shoulders turned inward, each moving inside their private cone of exhaustion. A child pulls against a parent's hand. A courier glances at a wrist display. A service drone glides past so smoothly it doesn't seem to touch the air. Then the signal over the platform blinks from amber to white to amber again. The traffic below resets with it. My teeth come together hard enough to ache. No one else reacts. No one ever reacts. A public announcement rolls across the nearest tower screen. Continuity is safety. Consistency is civil peace. Report cognitive irregularity. For half a second, the smiling woman delivering the message turns her head and looks directly at me. I stop breathing. Then the screen flickers and she's back in her loop, mouth shaping the same silent reassurance for the commuters below. Rain drips from my lashes. I wipe it away with the heel of my hand and realize I've stepped closer to the edge without meaning to. My boots are hanging over 40 stories of empty air and electric weather. The city hum rises through the catwalk grating and into my bones. Not tonight, I mutter. The words vanish into the storm. It doesn't help. It never helps. Once I see one of the slips, the rest of the night goes bad. I force myself to step back from the railing, slow, deliberate, like I'm talking down a stranger with a gun. There's a rhythm to surviving this city. Don't stare too long at anything that feels wrong. Don't say the same paranoid thought out loud too many times in the same week. Don't ask questions in rooms with visible speakers. Don't trust mirrored glass. Don't trust people who say they're here to help. Don't trust systems that promise frictionless living. And above all, don't ever let them know how much you've noticed. I pull my collar higher and start along the catwalk toward the maintenance hatch. Below me, Electo keeps shining. You'd never know it was sick. Chapter 2. My Apartment, My Evidence. My apartment is the width of a hallway and costs more than a decent person should pay to sleep badly. The lock lets me in after a 3-second pause I don't like. Too long. Long enough to make me glance up at the camera blister in the corner and wonder whether somebody new is looking through it tonight. Inside, the place is dark except for the city glow leaking through the slatted blinds and the low constellations of my equipment. Stacked monitors, open chassis, hardline taps, signal scramblers, old fiber coils, scavenged cooling units that make the whole room smell faint like ozone and hot dust. Most people would call it clutter. To me, it's insulation, evidence that I exist, that I've touched things, altered systems, left fingerprints behind somewhere harder to edit than memory. I shrug out of my coat and hang it over the back of a chair already carrying 2 others. Water drips onto the floor and crawls toward a crack in the tile. On the far wall, my archive waits. Dozens of screens, hundreds of clips, street captures, security leaks, duplicated faces, transit anomalies, timestamp conflicts, district maps marked by hand, audio distortions, ad cycle recurrences, city notices that changed wording overnight and then changed back. In one corner, I've pinned up stills of people I'm almost sure I've seen in more than one place at impossible intervals. In another, I've layered maps of Electo from public planning records over utility schematics and emergency routing grids. There are places in this city that should exist and don't, and places that don't exist but keep turning up if you follow the right broken line. I drop into the chair at my main terminal and wake the center screen. A grainy shot of Platform 12 fills the display. I scrub back 6 seconds. There's the woman in the red coat. I slow the playback, frame by frame, wrist lifting, fingers turning, head tilting. Loop. Again. I tag the clip and send it into the archive. My fingers move automatically after that, pulling up related anomalies from the last 3 weeks. Repeated gestures, crowd pattern recursion, light cycle resets. The same child appearing in 2 distant sectors inside the same hour. A municipal notice that referred to a brownout in District 7 before the brownout happened. Tiny things, all of them. Small enough to laugh off one by one. Small enough to drown in noise if you weren't paying attention. I've built my life on paying attention. That's how I eat. People come to me when they need identities scrubbed, access trails broken, sealed records opened, embarrassing truths extracted from places designed to keep them buried. I'm not a revolutionary. I'm not a hero. I'm a freelance wound in the system. For the right price, I make government archives forget your debt, make a landlord lose your eviction order, make a corporation misplace the trail proving it owns half your spine. Sometimes I pull memory fragments out of dead implants before legal repossession teams get there. Sometimes I tell myself I only take jobs that help people. Sometimes I lie well enough to sleep. Tonight, I can't even manage that. I open my private file. No client access, no mirrors, no remote sync. Triple encrypted local partition hidden under an obsolete utility shell. I named it Weather because nobody audits weather code. Inside are the things I don't say aloud. A repeated face from 3 years ago. A man on 2 different transit feeds. Same coat, same expression, same coffee cup. Same timestamp conflict impossible to reconcile. A school memory that changed. A hospital corridor I remember visiting when I was 13, except last time I searched the records, the hospital had never existed. 3 versions of my mother's death, each one supported by documents good enough to pass casual scrutiny, none of them matching the others. And one line typed so many times it has started to feel less like a question than a prayer. Why does reality feel manufactured? I stare at it until the letters lose shape. The room is quiet except for the low whine of the cooling fans and the endless, distant throb of the city. My hand goes to the side of my neck without me telling it to, fingertips pressing against skin, as though I'm checking for a pulse I should trust more than the world outside. Something flickers at the edge of my vision. White. Clean. A corridor with no seams. Metal fingers closing around mine. A tone, soft and far away. Then it's gone. I jerk back hard enough to clip my elbow on the chair arm. Pain flares sharp and stupid, real enough to make me hiss through my teeth. I stay frozen, eyes fixed on the darkened corner of the room. Nothing there. Just shadow, monitors, cables. My own reflection warped in the black glass of a dead screen. I stand, suddenly unable to sit still, and cross to the sink. The tap stutters before giving me a thread of water. I cup some into my hand and throw it across my face. Cold, metallic, city-tasting. I grip the edge of the sink and look at myself in the mirror panel bolted crookedly to the wall. Early 30s, if the records on me are real. Lean from stress more than discipline. Too little sleep. Eyes that always look like they belong to somebody waiting for a door to open in the wrong room. Rain still clinging to my hair. A face built to disappear in crowds, which has kept me alive more than once. Get a grip, I tell the mirror. The mirror doesn't answer. For a second, I'm grateful. Then the monitor behind me chirps once. Incoming. Unknown source. High priority encryption. I turn slowly. On the center screen, a single line of text appears. Recovery job, memory shard, murdered investigator. Pay, 6 times market rate. Accept? My mouth goes dry. Nobody pays 6 times market unless the data is priceless, cursed, or bait. Usually all 3. I wipe my wet hands on my pants, sit down again, and open the attachment. The victim's file blooms across the screen. Name, Silas Wynn. Occupational classification, Machine-Human Hybrid Investigator. Municipal Liaison grade. Cause of death? Pending. Body impounded before forensic public release. Case fragments attached. Disappearances. Continuity irregularities. Cognition edits. Unreconciled death records. I stop reading at continuity irregularities. There's a pressure building behind my ribs now. Not panic exactly. More like the second before a power surge hits, when the air changes and every piece of exposed circuitry in the room seems to wait with you. I should close the file. I should wipe the transmission and reroute my system through 3 dead relays and spend the night pretending I never saw it. Instead, I open the victim's image. Silas Wynn stares back at me from the morgue intake still. One side of his face bloodless and composed, the other threaded with the faint subdermal gleam of hybrid hardware. His eyes are closed. There's bruising at the temple. Beneath the photo is a notation about unauthorized access attempts prior to impound. Someone else has already tried to get to him. I lean back slowly. The chair creaks under me. Outside, thunder rolls between the towers, long and low, like something too large to fit inside the sky. I hover my hand over the accept field. Something is wrong, I think. The words come with no drama, no revelation, just the old familiar certainty settling into place, like a blade sliding into a groove. Something is wrong with this city. Something is wrong with my life. Something is wrong with me. I press accept. The reply comes instantly. Window, 0210, Morgue Annex 4. Don't let them see you. Then the message erases itself. I sit alone in the monitor glow, listening to the rain tick against the blinds. My left hand has curled into a fist so tight the knuckles have gone pale. I make myself uncurl it, one finger at a time. Chapter 3. The Morgue Annex. I leave 40 minutes early because people who survive this city for long don't confuse confidence with preparation. By the time I hit the street, the rain has turned thin and needling, more mist than weather. But the city still wears it like a fever. Street-level Electo always smells like wet circuitry, fryer grease, and coolant runoff. The upper towers get filtered air and ornamental gardens. Down here, the atmosphere must be survived honestly. I keep my head down and my pace unremarkable. That matters more than speed. The trick isn't disappearing. Disappearing gets noticed. The trick is becoming one more exhausted body moving with purpose through a system built to flatten individuality into traffic. A maintenance coat helps. So does the municipal patch I printed an hour ago and heat-bonded crooked onto the shoulder. Too clean is suspicious. Too perfect means counterfeit. If you're going to lie to a machine-governed city, you lie with flaws. I take the freight tram to a service transfer ring 3 sectors east of the annex and ride standing between a pipe fitter asleep on his feet and a woman carrying a crate of black market nutrient gel under a thermal tarp. The tram windows are scratched opaque by years of grime and old impact marks. Neon keeps sliding over them in bruised bands of blue and violet. No one speaks. No one ever really does on the late lines. At this hour, the city's silence is less peaceful than negotiated. People have learned not to offer themselves to the air more than necessary. At the next stop, a child gets on with an older man in a sanitation harness 2 sizes too big for him. The kid's boots leave wet prints on the tram floor. He looks up at the route display, frowns, then says, too loudly, "This part happened already." The older man's hand closes over the back of his neck at once. Firm. Not cruel. Just immediate. "Quiet," he says. The kid opens his mouth again, sees the expression on the man's face, and looks down. I stare at the black window until my own reflection blurs into passing light. My jaw is tight enough to hurt. "This part happened already." I file the words away with everything else. By the time I reach the transfer point, my fake maintenance credentials have already been pinged twice by passive civic scanners. Both times they cleared. That should reassure me. Instead, it makes the skin between my shoulder blades crawl. Good counterfeit work buys you a route through systems. It doesn't buy you trust. The morgue annex sits in the shadow of a larger medical tower, like an afterthought nobody wanted architecturally associated with the main building. Annex 4 is a low, rectangular slab of white composite and smoked glass, with no visible windows on the public-facing side, the sort of structure that doesn't need to look threatening because everyone already knows what goes in and what comes out. Bodies, evidence, liability. A pair of audit drones float above the service lane, their undercarriages ticking with rotational optics. I slow before the checkpoint, let my shoulders sag, adding a little irritation to my expression. Tired workers get waved through, nervous ones get remembered. The access gate projects a pale cone of scanning light over me from head to boots. "State assignment." The voice comes from nowhere visible, neutral, genderless, polite in the way only something incapable of care can be. "Coolant diagnostics, lower refrigeration tier," I say, holding up the municipal work slate without seeming eager. "Repeated pressure drops in the West Bank." A beat. My forged order flashes against the gate's internal lens. I keep my breathing level. Then the scanner light goes green. "Proceed." I nod once, as if mildly offended anyone asked, and step through. The instant I'm inside, I feel the difference. Hospitals try to smell sterile. Morgues smell processed, recycled air, chemical scrub, sealed coolant lines. Something metallic beneath it all that survives every cleaning. The corridor beyond the checkpoint is narrow and too bright, the kind of brightness that makes every shadow feel intentional. White wall panels, gray floor strips, overhead light modules humming at a frequency that catches somewhere behind my eyes. I do not like places that think cleanliness equals moral authority. A service map glows on the inside wall. I glance at it while pretending to check my work order. Refrigeration West Bank is 2 floors down, so is the forensic impound. Convenient. I take the maintenance lift alone. In the polished metal of the doors, my face looks thinner than it did in the apartment mirror, more angular, as if this building only reflects the parts of you that belong in records. I press the lower tier selection, then slip a code wafer into the seam beneath the panel. The wafer kisses the port, rewrites my descent route, and pulls the car 1 level deeper than I'm supposed to go. Unauthorized. The lift never announces it. Good systems don't scold, they document. When the doors part, cold hits me first. Not outdoor cold, mechanical cold, dry, disciplined, and continuous. Forensic impound is quieter than the floors above, not silent. There's always some sound if you listen hard enough. Distant compressor pulse, magnetic lock cycling, the whisper of air moving through filtered vents. But it's the kind of quiet built to flatten accidents into procedure. I step out into a corridor lined with opaque pod doors and recessed status strips. The dead here are stored better than most of the living. My route to Silas Wynn is already in my peripheral overlay, traced from the annex map I lifted before leaving home. Pod F19. Restricted hold. Hybrid designation. Priority legal chain. That means fast. I turn left, pass an idle body transport cradle parked against the wall, and round the corner into a long chamber filled with vertical forensic pods stacked 3 high. For a moment I just stand there. Rows of them. Sealed white caskets mounted upright in the wall, each fronted by a narrow strip of identity light. Human, hybrid, synthetic. Asset tags in place of names half the time. Municipal seals, corporate lien markers, storage codes, ownership residue lingering even after death. I swallow the taste in my mouth and move. F11, F12, F13. I keep my hands loose and my steps even. Running draws cameras. Hesitation draws attention. The trick is to move like you belong to the machinery. F19. Silas Wynn's pod is marked with a yellow legal hold band and a red restricted extraction symbol. Someone important wanted him examined carefully, or hidden carefully. Sometimes it's the same thing. I kneel beside the maintenance access seam and pop the panel with a flex blade from my sleeve. Inside, cooling lines, a service port, and a diagnostics jack not meant for human fingers. Good. Those are my favorite kind. I pull the portable rig from my satchel and snap it open on the floor. Slim decrypt spindle, pulse bridge, cranial access leads, data spooler, improvised power cell. Everything matte black, hand-modified, ugly enough to work. My breath fogs once in the cold, then vanishes. "Let's see what got you killed," I whisper. The pod release is supposed to require dual-chain authorization. I give it neither. 30 seconds with the bridge on the panel bus, and the lock forgets its loyalty. The seals blink amber, hesitate, then peel back. The front shell hisses outward. Silas Wynn stands suspended inside on magnetic supports, head tilted slightly to one side, as if he'd simply fallen asleep upright and inconvenient. Up close, the hybrid work is more subtle than the intake photo suggested. Human skin mostly. Synthetic reinforcement braided beneath the jawline. Interface ports threaded behind the ear. A faint silvering at the temple where trauma darkens the tissue around it. Dead doesn't erase personhood all at once. That's the lie institutions tell themselves. There's always a stretch where the body still looks occupied enough to make your own nerves misfire. I glance toward the chamber entrance. No movement. I slip on conductive gloves and reach carefully behind Wynn's left ear, fingers finding the hidden access notch. The cranial port opens with a tiny mechanical click. There you are. I slot in the lead and bring the spooler online. For half a second, nothing happens. Then, lines of data begin to cascade across my wrist display. Corrupted memory indexing, partial neural cache, law enforcement encryption wrappers, post-mortem fragmentation. Whoever killed him either wanted his memory erased or wanted it to look erased. Another familiar distinction. I isolate the last 48 hours and start the pull. 6%, 9, 12. A flicker crosses the display. I open a live preview window. Static. Artificing. A corridor somewhere. Wynn's point of view moving too fast. Breath ragged in the audio layer. Then a room full of people standing absolutely still. My fingers stop moving. One of the figures shivers. No, not shivers. Breaks. For a fraction of a second, the person's outline tears sideways in a spray of digital noise and then snaps back into place. I lean closer, pulse tapping hard at the base of my throat. The footage jumps. An exterior street, night, rain. A woman turning a corner and vanishing between one frame and the next, Not out of sight, but out of existence. The image stutters, resets, plays again from half a second earlier. 23%. A child in a transit car. A man with the same face in two places at once. An entire block of architecture rolling backward through a lighting state it has already passed. My mouth has gone dry. Then, Wynn's recording stabilizes long enough for him to look into his own reflection in a black window panel. Bruised face, one eye swollen, blood at the corner of his mouth. He knows he's dying, or close enough not to bet against it. When he speaks, his voice is rough and wet, as if every word is cutting him on the way out. If you're seeing this, he coughs, winces, looks over his shoulder at something off-screen. The layer is unstable. My hands are suddenly cold inside the gloves. Wynn leans closer to the reflective glass, forcing the message toward whoever comes after. This world is not base reality. The hum of the refrigeration unit seems to drop out around me. Find the exit before they erase you. The preview freezes on his face. For one irrational second, I can't move. My body forgets its next instruction. I'm kneeling on the polished floor of a morgue with a dead investigator wired into my stolen rig, and all I can hear is my own pulse grinding in my ears. Not base reality. The phrase lands in me with the clean force of a blade finding a gap between ribs. All the years of collecting anomalies, all the repeated gestures, the memory slips, the wrong hospital, my mother dying 3 different ways, the woman on the platform, the child on the tram saying this part happened already. Every private suspicion I have spent half my life treating like a parasite suddenly shifts shape. Not madness, evidence. Chapter 4. On Notice. I don't realize I'm smiling until my cheek twitches with it. It isn't joy. It's something stranger and more dangerous. The violent relief of discovering the nightmare has rules. Then the chamber lights dim. Just once. Barely perceptible. But enough. My head snaps toward the entrance. At the far end of the room, reflected faintly in the black strip of a dormant pod screen, a red audit light sweeps across the floor. Drone. Too early. The spooler reads 31%. Come on, I breathe. The rig whines softly as it pulls more data. My hands move faster, splitting the extraction into priority layers. Final memory segment first. Root logs second. Metadata third. If I have to run, I run with truth, not paperwork. The red light passes again, brighter now. Somewhere beyond the chamber, a door seal cycles open. I look up at the stacked dead, at their white, sealed faces, at the polished floor reflecting cold light back at me, and feel the entire building suddenly reveal itself for what it is. Not a place of rest, but a warehouse of edited endings. 38%. 40. Footsteps. No, not footsteps. Too even. Rotor drift. The audit drone glides into the chamber mouth with insect patience, white shell gleaming, sensor cluster rotating in tight, attentive clicks. For half a second, it doesn't see me, or rather, it sees me and places me where the disguise says I should be. Then, it sees the open pod. Its optics flare red. Unauthorized forensic breach detected. I yank the lead free so fast it spits sparks from the port. The chamber floods with alarm light. Silas Wynn's pod begins trying to reseal around his body as I rip the spooler loose, slam the rig shut, and snatch it off the floor. The drone's undercarriage opens with a mechanical iris of its own, revealing a shock emitter spinning up to lethal brightness. I throw myself sideways just as the first shot cracks the air. Blue-white current explodes against the pod where my head was an instant earlier. The impact punches a spiderweb burn across the shell and dumps a spray of molten casing fragments over the floor. I hit hard, shoulder first, slide on one knee, and come up running. Behind me, the drone shrieks a pursuit alert into the building network. Every light in the corridor beyond the chamber turns emergency red. So much for quiet. I bolt through the nearest service door instead of the main hall, slamming my palm against the release plate so hard the impact stings. The panel hesitates, one bad heartbeat, before giving. I slip through the gap as the drone fires again. The blast scorches the frame inches from my back and fills the passage with the smell of burnt composite. The service corridor is narrow, cramped with pipework and warm from the utility lines. Good. Drones hate imperfect geometry. Bad news, so do I, when I'm running full tilt with a satchel full of stolen evidence and half the city about to learn my name. An alarm voice rolls overhead in calm, impeccable diction. Security event in lower forensic sector. Please remain where you are. I bark out one short laugh between breaths. That's always the way with systems. They ask nicely while they close the trap. At the next junction, I yank a maintenance lever and dump steam into the corridor behind me. White vapor erupts from the line with a scream, swallowing the passage in an instant. The drone hits it a second later and opens fire blind, blue current lancing through the cloud. I'm already climbing. A ladder bolted to the wall leads up toward a refrigeration exchange. I sling the satchel over one shoulder and haul myself rung by rung, boots slipping once on condensation. My heart is hammering now, no longer something observed academically, but a real blunt engine smashing at my ribs. Not base reality. The words keep flashing in time with the pulse. At the top hatch, I jam a bypass pick into the emergency wheel, twist until the lock strips, and shoulder through into a wider machinery bay full of compressor housings and coolant trunks. The air here trembles with industrial vibration. Somewhere below, the drone changes route. Good. Let it think like a machine. I cut across the bay, vault a waist-high condenser manifold, and nearly collide with a morgue technician standing frozen beside a status console. We look at each other. For a beat, neither of us moves. He sees the stolen rig in my hand, the emergency lights, and the burn mark across my sleeve. I see the moment his training loses the argument with survival. He steps back and turns his face away. I keep going. By the time I hit the West Bank maintenance corridor, the whole annex is in lockdown. Shutters are coming down sector by sector, access lights flipping red, doors choosing sides. I thumb my work slate awake and fire a dirty code string into the local utility net. It won't open the whole building. I'm not that good under pressure, and no one is that good in a sealed system. But I don't need control. I need confusion. The refrigeration grid hiccups. Temperature warnings pop across 3 floors. Containment protocol reroutes. 2 shutters stop halfway down. That's enough. I dive through the opening as a siren starts rising somewhere behind me, thin and merciless. Cold air punches my face, then stairwell, then another corridor, then finally the service exit. The service exit is chained. Not locked, not sealed, chained. For half a second, the stupidity of it almost stops me. I've spent the last 90 seconds outrunning a networked forensic system, sophisticated enough to catalog the molecular decay of a corpse in real time. And what nearly kills me at the end is a strip of old metal fed through a crash bar, as if some underpaid supervisor got tired of inventory theft and solved it with hardware from a dead century. Behind me, the alarm voice keeps speaking in the same unbothered tone. Security response in progress. Please remain where you are. The drone screams somewhere up the corridor. I drop the satchel, grab the chain in both hands, and brace one boot against the door. It's thicker than it looked, wet from the cold. My gloves slip. I yank again anyway, teeth bared, tendons standing out in my wrists. The links snap tight and bite into my palms through the conductive weave. Nothing. I let go with one hand, dig in my coat pocket, come up with the flex blade and jam it between the links at the latch point. Bad angle, no leverage. The metal groans without giving. The drone rounds the far corner in a wash of spinning red optics. I rip the portable power cell off the extraction rig, slam it against the chain, and thumb it into overload. The charge blooms in my hand with a high insect whine. Then it goes off. White light, hard cracks. The chain jumps like a live thing and spits molten fragments into the corridor. I turn my face just in time and still catch a spray of hot metal across the jaw. Pain flashes bright enough to wipe the next second clean. When my vision returns, the crash bar is hanging crooked and the chain has split near the anchor point. Good enough. I hit the door with my shoulder. It bursts outward into rain. I stumble down 2 concrete steps and into the service lane behind the annex, just as a second shock round tears through the doorway frame above me, showering sparks over the wet pavement. Cold rain needles my face, hisses against the scorched fabric on my sleeve, and for one wild instant, the city feels less like a trap than a conspiracy I already know how to survive.